what's up, everybody? Welcome back. If you think you were just here, you were.
As promised.
Yeah, 24 hours ago, we were sitting down to do the first full episode, or part one, of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now that the first two episodes are out on Disney Plus, and as you say, Andy, as promised, we are back. We're going to cover part two tonight. Like I said, we will never be first, but we will bring you what you've come to expect from us here at Fandom Power. So,
awesome.
Welcome back, guys. Happy to be back here again. Andy, Hank, the band is back together, I think. Woo! At least for the foreseeable future.
The batch.
The batch. Yeah, that's going to come up again tonight.
We're the good batch.
There's a few.
The Mando Andos.
The Mando Andos, yes. And I want my cooking show with those two droids from the palace.
Hell yeah.
Okay, guys, it is part two. I'm not even going to spend a whole lot of time on preamble tonight because I think we kind of sussed it out kind of yesterday in the what did we think about things. Has anybody's opinions changed? Did you guys watch it again between last night and today?
Yes.
A little.
Okay.
Yeah, I hate it now.
On a sheer technicality, I did.
Lies, sir, lies.
Yeah. It's what? We are 6:02 Eastern time, and I can tell you with no word of a lie, I was still writing at an hour ago.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah. So there was lots to cover. We got lots to get through tonight, and I guess we'll just kick it right off, and we'll get started. It's part two, Obi-Wan Kenobi. This one debuted on Disney Plus on Friday, May 27th. The story is by Stuart Beattie and Hossein Amini. The teleplay by Joby Harold. This one, like all of the episodes, are directed by Deborah Chow. This episode is 42 minutes front to back with your credits and recap, or a leaner 32 minutes and 54 seconds without, or if you do it in my time, about 20 hours of writing.
In all fairness, though, the first two episodes, pacing wise, they could be one episode.
And they probably, I mean, there's a feature length film there.
Yes.
And hey, we're going to get 3 more of those?
At least.
Yeah. The episode synopsis for this one reads, on a dangerous crime-ridden world, Obi-Wan Kenobi becomes a target.
It's a bit weird because he was already a target.
Well, yeah.
A target for 10 years, according to episode 1.
And again, that gets reinforced in this episode. Guys, if you're just joining us now, welcome to our show, The High Ground. It's our beat-by-beat breakdown of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, now streaming on Disney Plus. As always, we are live every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, where we take your comments and your questions throughout the show. So if you are watching live, hit us up with a comment. Hit us up. Let us know where you're at, where you're watching from.
Join the conversation.
And let's get started.
Awesome.
All right. Guys, thematically, this episode kind of continues on all of the exposition that we kind of talked about yesterday. This whole notion that Ben is not the same man that he was at the end of Revenge of the Sith a decade earlier. The idea that he might be disconnected, maybe a little bit lost, and in some ways, maybe feeling sorry for himself. I think at points throughout this one, though, maybe even more so in this episode, we start to see more of those glimmers of the Jedi that once was.
Yeah. And in a contrast, we actually see that he didn't go to the extremes Luke did.
You mean in his exile? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good question, though, because did he though?
I don't think he did. I think he held on to it, just not as, rigorous as he did during his time in the Clone Wars. Because he's still calling out for Qui-Gon. He's still trying to learn that.
True. That is true. Yeah.
That's waking up out of a nightmare, though. That's like calling for Dad when you wake up out of a nightmare.
So true.
You know what I mean? So, but I think that we're showing, this episode, both episodes do a great thing in terms of storytelling. And they teach you this in like grade 9 when you take creative writing.
Yeah.
Like, show, don't tell. And that's what this is doing. That's what
oh my gosh, yeah.
And they're showing, the difference here is that while Obi-Wan's purpose is to watch over Luke, it's an obligation. It's full of trepidation and fear over his failure. It's so inexorably mixed into his failure, and so giving him a problem to solve now instead of waiting for one is really what starts to crack the egg, I think. Like giving him purpose back. Not that watching Luke isn't purpose, but it's not immediate. It's like brooding. It's time to ruminate, and that's not healthy for the best of us.
No, you're right about that. Going back to the Luke Skywalker analogy, though, Andy, like we see this in this episode. Like when Luke Skywalker reconnected to the Force in
Last Jedi.
In The Last Jedi, he projected himself across the universe.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi struggled with picking up a child.
True.
So, I mean, I don't know. Does that just speak to the Skywalker bloodline, or is that more indicative of that severed connection? And who does? I guess it ultimately does boil down to who's got a stronger connection.
Yeah, could be.
Maybe it's in the midichlorians.
The higher count.
It could be.
By the time we get to the end of this one, we get this big metaphorical. I mean, Obi-Wan by the end of this is metaphorically faced by one of his biggest demons, which is going to set us up for that future physical confrontation that we know is coming.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is exactly what catharsis is.
Yeah.
Like the physical manifestation of all that mental trauma.
Oh, yeah. Well, this episode opens with the transport ship that we saw Obi-Wan board back on Tatooine arriving at the planet Daiyu. So canonically speaking, we don't know a whole lot about Daiyu other than this one is inspired by Hong Kong. I can't even tell you where within Star Wars space that it is. But I would hazard a guess that given the level of
lawlessness.
I would say lawlessness. I mean, the Empire's there, the stormtroopers are walking around, but they sure don't really seem to care about a whole lot.
No.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is, typical Outer Rim world. It almost plays like, I mean, we're fans of the old EU, and we've read a lot. I get like Nar Shaddaa, like Hutt space vibes off the planet without the presence of the Huts.
Yeah, like a crime family underneath the Empire.
Yeah, exactly.
Or operating with their blessing.
Or there's enough, like the Hutts, funneled enough credits at the Empire that they just kind of left them alone.
Yeah.
It shares a lot of the aesthetic with George Lucas's failed TV show, if you've ever seen the test footage for that.
Was that oh, you know what? I think I have.
Yeah, man.
Was it like heavily CGI, like old school CGI?
Heavily old school CGI, but the palette and the design aspects are very, very similar.
Okay. Well, the atmosphere in Daiyu, it's very thick and kind of green. And as the ship punches below the clouds, we can see a dense cityscape, and it's kind of nighttime. Now that's a good question. Like, is it nighttime, or is that just like how thick the atmosphere on this planet is? There's a reference later on in the episode where Ben's like, I talked to your parents, so you'd be home before nightfall. Anyway, as the ship lands at the starport, we're treated to our first Easter egg, and it's in the form of a Gallifrey GR-75 medium transport resting on a nearby platform. The GR-75, also known as the Rebel transport, we first saw that back in The Empire Strikes Back. At the gate below, Obi-Wan steps out of the terminal holding the small pad that was in his lockbox back on Tatooine, and he takes a look around. Above him, there is what appears to be an arrivals and departures board. And there is like oodles and oodles and oodles of language on this board. And at first I was really excited. I'm like, oh, yeah, translation time, which quickly turned into monotony as like, it is so obscured. My monitors don't have the resolution for me to dial in on them enough to be able to translate them. I was able to pick out, there is a recurrent word here, and it is Starliner. And then afterwards, there's a numerical there's a numerical designation that seems to change, and then some of the smaller text I just couldn't make out.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got our first comment coming in from YouTube tonight. It's Derpy Gaming, who says that's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you, Derpy. Nice to have you along tonight.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right, let's move forward here. Okay, this is actually kind of cool. Obi-Wan steps out of the terminal, and he's framed by another neon Orabesh sign. And oh my god, did I howl when I looked at this, because the translation of the bottom word, it's kind of gibberishy, red arm, but the letters do kind of go beyond what we can see. So it could actually say something else. But the beginning, the top of that, and when you watch Ben literally walk under the word machina. And I'm like, oh my god. I mean, I don't know how you're Latin. You guys Latin any good? I mean, beyond the obvious that machina is Latin for machine, there's another connotation for machina for in reference to a god in Greek or Roman play that suddenly appears in the storyline in order to solve a problem.
Nice.
I'm like, did they have this kind of fun throughout the entire? Like, did they plant this stuff in all over the place?
I think they did.
Deus Ex Machina, literally Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah, the Ghost in the Machine. There are other little. There's a lot of the stuff that I looked at in this one that the letters are either gibberish, because the one cool thing I will say, there's so much neon in this. A lot of it's repetitive, but in the places where it's not, sometimes the signage will be burnt out. So the words are incomplete, and a lot of those come up gibberish.
Yeah.
There's also a spot in the later on where they've planted a name. It's a very Anglo-Saxon name. It's like, I don't even remember what it is. It's like Tanner or something. I'm like, is that like, are they talking to the crew now? Is the crew getting referenced now on the show?
I saw quite a few that like Jawa Juice, Market.
Yeah. All that stuff's in there.
All kinds of little like tauntaun stuff.
Derpy says, this is where the fun begins, fellas.
Yeah.
Sure does.
Yes, sir.
All right. So nearby, a starport worker is speaking to a traveler about how he cannot control the weather on the planet that the man is planning to travel to. Ben approaches the worker in an attempt to explain how he was tracking a ship, but the port worker stops him short, explaining that on Dayu, all signals in and out are blocked because people like their secrets out here. With no leads and no help, Ben is on his own. I keep looking at this scanner device, and I was looking at it in the first episode, and I'm like,
kind of looks like a Game Boy Advance.
I was going to say, what handheld game console did they raid for this one?
Probably a Game Boy Advance.
I think so.
At least for the shell.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
All right. We cut to a long downward panning shot of a neon lit street. It's the same street that we saw back in the first trailer. And again, this is the cornucopia of Orabesh.
Oh, yeah.
As I said, much of which is repeated, but we can clearly make out the some words like market, stop, and Gungan snacks. And I don't think we talked about this in our trailer breakdown, but like,
we talked about one, but not this one.
When they say Gungan snacks,
yeah,
do we think that they're talking about
Jar Jar visiting, or
snacks
Jar Jar being a snack?
Snacks that Gungans would eat, or snacks made of Gungans?
Well, they like their secrets.
Well,
I don't know.
A and column B, maybe. I get
Again
crazy Blade Runner vibes out this sequence.
Yeah, it totally evokes that.
Bad Blade Runner vibes.
This is another one. I know we talked a little bit about it offline yesterday, but again, the reuse of the sets, like they just reset the shot and then go again. And although the pacing of the episode really conveys they're moving throughout the city, you cannot help but see the same things over and over and over again. And it kind of took me out of it just ever so slightly. Yeah. Another comment from Derpy, who says, Misa Teeks, Darth Riva will be the hero in the end. Derpy, I don't know if you were with us last night. We actually talked about that, and I do think that you're onto something there.
Redemption maybe in the future. Redemption
being a central theme to Star Wars. I do think that Riva will be redeemed in this. The question remains, though, will it be posthumously or not?
Yeah, that's a big thing. That was Harrison Ford's sort of request for the character of Han Solo, is that he die, heroically. Yeah. And that's what we all want, and that seems to be another theme in Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, down at street level, we see Ben making his way through an open market while two men in the distance scuffle. No one seems to care about the open display of violence here, and people just watch with disinterest. Further down the street, we see a pair of men gambling while a small crowd looks on.
Now, do we know if that's the same dice game the guys on Tatooine were playing? Or is it just maybe like...
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. It's like every time I see cards in Star Wars, is it automatically Sabacc? Yeah. Follow-up comment from Derpy, who says, I saw the leaks, so yeah. You know what's funny that we talked about this yesterday, the whole there was a discussion about the bait and switch that like people say Boba Fett was a guest on his own show.
Yeah.
And that, the people are hoping, I hope Obi-Wan's not a guest on his own show. I don't think that's the case. I do think that thematically, centrally speaking, this is about Obi-Wan. And like I said yesterday, he couldn't save Anakin. Maybe he can save her.
Yep.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with, setting up a new character to move forward with.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Stopping for a moment, Ben mutters to himself, if ever I needed guidance, master, it's now. But the moment is broken by a gruff voice from behind him begging for credits. Turning to look.
Or is that the guidance?
I don't know. Maybe it is. That's a great point, Hank. I never even considered that.
As soon as they said that and the clone spoke up, I was like, that's the Force talking to him right there.
Interesting.
Face your past, Obi-Wan. Face your past, Obi-Wan. And I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
I got goosebumps still. That's absolutely.
Turning to look, Ben sees a clone sitting on the street holding out an overturned helmet. His hair and beard are long and unkempt, and it would appear that the clone might be homeless. There is also a distance in his eyes suggesting that he may also be drunk or possibly on drugs.
Well, you know what's available on this planet.
The clone goes on to say, help a veteran get a warm meal. Ben tosses in a few credits into the man's helmet and he walks away, just as a pair of Imperial stormtroopers march past, ordering him and anyone else in their way out of the way. This is kind of cool because we talked about Andy, you said the lawlessness.
Yeah.
Talk about the degrees of what's acceptable here. This is a good one here because
panhandling is accepted.
First of all, Tamira Morrison is back as a clone. Yay. I mean, that, like, genuinely speaking, yay. I'm happy for that.
It's wicked.
As soon as he said that he was willing to play other characters, that meant that he was.
Yeah.
100%.
Also, one of these two stormtroopers, if you listen to their chatter, is a woman. Which is kind of cool because that tells us that the trend established in the Bad Batch, as you said, Andy, with the conscripts, that has continued, and now we have women in the stormtrooper ranks.
Absolutely. It makes sense.
So some questions I have, specifically regarding this clone. Generally speaking, what do we think the state of the surviving clones is in 10 BBY?
Is he no longer fit to serve? Like, has he broken down, like degenerated to that point?
Talk about the advanced aging of clones and how at some point their bodies are just going to break down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or did he desert?
Project War Mantle.
War Mantle, that's right.
Right? Like, they were decommissioned. The fact that he still got his armor on is interesting to me.
Well, that's another one that I want to talk about too.
Yeah.
Like, did
these stormtroopers don't even give a frick.
Well, that's exactly my point. The guy's sitting there, and it's not just that he's wearing clone armor. Let's just put this one right on the hit the nail on the head.
501st.
That's 501st. So I mean,
Vader's private army.
Yeah, I mean that's Vader's fist.
Yeah. Nothing else will drive you to drink quicker than gunning down a few younglings, I'll tell you that.
Well, there it is too, right? But again, so do they just let them walk away and keep their armor? Is this one of those rare cases that
maybe he got left behind?
Rex
you know what it brought to mind was, do you remember the class, the failed Jedi,
I do.
Original RPG, where they were allowed to operate because the Emperor loved the fact that they were miserable, wretched creatures.
Yeah.
They were just allowed to exist, and that reminded me of that class.
Sure.
Yeah, just live your life. Like, feel your pain. We don't care. You're zero threat to us. Put on your armor, so what?
Interesting. So we're saying that we believe that this guy, because here's something that comes up in the Bad Batch and other Star Wars properties, is that Order 66 gets carried out. The clones are compelled to act, with the exception of those few that were able to break programming, but they all remember what they did, and 100%. So they have to live with
knowing what.
They have to reconcile what they did in that moment. And as we saw with guys like Crosshair, who I firmly believe is a willing participant in the New Order, is this the other end of the spectrum? Somebody who's regretful,
where he knows he couldn't stop himself.
Yeah.
Maybe he killed someone close to him.
It doesn't make the tragedy of Order 66 like literally a million-fold worse.
Yeah. Let's go back to what you were saying, Hank, about that maybe this was guidance from Master Qui-Gon. Again, this guy's he's sporting the colors of the 501st. We know that the 501st, that was Anakin's clone legion or clone battalion, but they worked extensively and very closely with the 212th.
Oh yeah, man.
Obi-Wan Kenobi's clone battalion.
Were they not split off from it?
No, Ahsoka's what I can't remember the designation. What's the designation for Ahsoka's troopers, Hank?
282, I think.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. I think so.
With the 212th and the 501st being so closely associated, is there a chance that this guy recognizes General Kenobi?
I think in a right state of mind he would.
Yeah.
Because your generals.
Yeah.
There's a pause that Obi-Wan makes. It makes me feel more like Obi-Wan. I know he recognizes him because he's a clone, but it's more of a pause of like this specific clone. Whether it's that's 501st armor, that's
sure.
Recognizing that this guy was present at the temple and lived through Yoda and himself escaping. There's just a slight pause in what Obi-Wan does here before he puts the credits in the helmet.
Yeah, he almost turns away to kind of like.
There's enough of a pause there, and I'm gonna go back. I suggested that maybe the look in his eye suggested drugs and or alcohol or something else. What about now? So we saw in the trailer, we know that we saw a clone in the trailer. I don't think this is the same guy.
No,
I don't think it's the same guy. I was pretty adamant that the clone we saw in the trailer had a droid or mechanical hand. This guy clearly has a flesh and blood hand on that side. It's wrapped in wraps, but it's still a human hand.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that this guy, his station, as it were, is an act? You think he's still doing something behind the scenes that he does recognize? Yeah, this is General Kenobi. Something's up, and we'll see him later on down the road?
Maybe, but I would say no. Just because of how quickly the alert goes out later.
Yeah.
And he doesn't trigger anything.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're just one guy.
True.
I mean, even if your job is to sit there and when something comes up, you grab the radio and you call somebody else.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's like I don't know. I know they're not your genre, but it's like a horror movie. It's the first flash of terror.
Yeah.
It's the first ripple in the pond of face your past.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's visceral to us. We're huge fans, but it's metaphorical.
You got a couple more comments here from Derpy. I just want to put these up for a second because they're kind of funny. I don't know if you guys have you seen the Halo show, guys?
I have not watched it.
Okay, I've watched it. I've watched the whole thing. Look at it this way, fellas. It could be the Halo show bad. I think it won't be that bad, but sequel bad though. followed up immediately with, but so far for me, the Kenobi show has been exciting, and I'm curious to see that if it will keep this route or go what the leaks say. Like I said, it couldn't be worse than the Halo show. And you know what? I am not married to Halo Combat Evolved or any of its sequels. I have played them all. I have enjoyed them. There's a reason why I don't play fast twitch games, first-person shooters competitively, because I'm the type of guy that, wants to throw the controller at a 10-year-old's head.
Younglings, Wes. Younglings.
I know. My point being that I'm not married to it. It doesn't have to be an exact interpretation. So I enjoyed the Halo show. I'm probably one of a few people that did, but I like Pablo Schreiber. I liked him in his other work, like in Orange is the New Black, where he was porn stash. And then his role in American Gods as the leprechaun McSweeney. He's very good in those.
Yeah.
But this is different. Obi-Wan is different. It's while it's still an adaptation, or can we call it an extrapolation of George Lucas's original work, it exists in its own space, and that we can tell this story and connect it to what's come before and what's come after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because in A New Hope, he's so vague. Like, he's good at leaving details out.
Yeah. And that's another thing, you talk about the detractors that have been coming out in the last couple of days, people talking about, filling in those gaps, things that we talked about long before we got here about when last we met, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. No one said that there was no meeting between Ben and Vader between A New Hope and Revenge of the Sith. So whatever they do, I'm sure that they will write, if they write it as capably if they've written these first two episodes, it'll be handled in such a way that it'll work. Okay, let's move forward. As Ben continues his search for Leia, a young woman with bright pink hair approaches him, trying to sell him some spice. While nearby, an even younger boy eavesdrops on the conversation. The spice dealer offers Ben a choice between Kessel Pure, Glitter Stim, and Pollution. When she asks him what he needs, Ben responds with, "How about some information?" Which, by the way, that's a big contrast from the last time someone tried to sell the man drugs. Hey, want to buy some death sticks?
Right.
You don't want to sell me death sticks.
Anybody else get the train spotting vibe off of this sequence?
I didn't until you mentioned it.
Yeah,
quite very much. That's his real life daughter.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That's Esther Rose. Esther Rose. Sorry, I'm going to finish this up here. Ben tells the young woman that he's searching for his daughter, that she was kidnapped and brought to Dayu. Pragmatically, the spice dealer says that if she's here, he'll never see her again, because no one ever leaves, adding, "I was someone's daughter once too."
So meta, it's crazy.
Yeah. Reaching into her satchel, she pulls out a vial of spice and she slides it into Ben's pocket, telling him, "This one's free. A couple more of those and you'll forget she ever existed." And then moves off in search of her next customer. Yeah, I'm looking for my daughter, as she's standing in front of him. As I said, as we have already established, this is Ewan McGregor. It's his second oldest daughter. It's Esther Rose. At just 20 years of age, Esther is already an accomplished model, musician, activist, and a writer. So good for her. Which means that she filmed this, she would have been 19 when this was filmed?
Should be, yeah.
Roughly a year. Yeah, roughly a year ahead of time, I guess.
But the line she gives him, that could explain away the clone trooper. Maybe he's had a couple more vials.
That's entirely true.
Everything.
Well, this is it too. And I mean, we see later on with the mercenaries what happens to them, and it's almost immediate too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fair.
That's really the first time we're going to get into it. That's really the first time we see somebody under the influence of spice. We've heard about it, we've talked about it, but we've never really seen it.
I know we laughed when when they dropped that box of spice in the desert in Boba Fett, and it's like, oh my God, those two guys!
Those guys are done now.
They're going to be comatose for the next month. All right. Shortly after the spice dealer walks away, the young eavesdropper makes his move. Approaching Ben, he tells them that there's a Jedi that helps people. Ben tells the boy that the Jedi are all gone, but the boy counters that he can take him to him for the right price. Now, I don't know who this kid is. I didn't get his name. But does this kid not like just exude street smart?
Oh man, he's great. Yeah.
I like him. I like him quite a bit. I hope we see more of him as well. We cut to the interior of a building somewhere in the city, and a large sliding door slides up, and what appears to be a Jedi leads a woman and a small boy to a table at the center of a cavernous room. Waving an outstretched hand, the Jedi closes the shutters on the windows as he tells the duo they're safe now, and he won't let anything happen to them. But there seems to be just a little too much electronic noise for this to be a simple use of the Force. Still, the woman and the boy are impressed. Sitting down at the table, the man throws back his hood, revealing his face, and again, using his Force powers, draws a comlink to his hand. And hey, what do you know? It's comedian Kumail Nanjiani. And of course, I mean, there's an up-and-comer. I mean, I guess you can't really call him an up-and-comer anymore. He's been around for a little while now. Certainly made his mark. Last seen for me, anyway, in The Eternals.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah, and this is my one. I have to be very careful how I frame this because it's my one and I won't say it's my only. This is my biggest criticism about this episode, and it may not even be a criticism depending on what side of the fence you fall on this. But this character is undeniably played in Nanjiani's style. So I mean, if you've seen any of his movies, when I say Nanjiani's style, you kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's got a style.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
It's his style.
Signature style.
It's like we're letting Robin Williams be the parent.
Yeah. That's
the genie, I guess.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So because it's done in his style, it makes this character dangerously close to a parody of every other character that he's ever played before. And in some ways, I felt like I was watching Stuber try to pull the wool over this family's eyes. That being said, I do think that is what makes this character quirky and kind of likable, because it is him and that it is his style.
He's like Steve Carell's really good at this too, walking the line of awkward and just staying this side of it, not pushing it so far that you go, oh, I can't watch it anymore.
Right.
It's just he walks that line. He does a pretty good job here too. What I find interesting is that there's a character, even though he's a charlatan, that knows a hell of a lot about Jedi. You know, like
he knows enough.
10 years out, he knows they can move objects with their hands, you know, or their minds, and he knows about mind tricks, etc.
Yeah.
You know, that's interesting to me. That like there's a bit of knowledge.
I think he fits into that. You know, I mean, on a place like this where everybody's just trying to, you know, it's the next con or the next get rich quick scheme. When you live in a place that is so, I mean, we just talked to a drug dealer who used to be somebody's daughter. Everybody's trying to just survive. And I mean,
giving up hope.
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy who's taken the political climate and he's turned it into a capital venture, if you will.
Preying on people's hope.
I mean, it is a dangerous time for Jedi. So, I mean, somebody who's bold enough to go out and impersonate a Jedi and actually try to like con some people on that is taking some chances.
Yeah,
he might even be legit helping them, you know, but this is his shtick.
Well, I do think that he is on some, like he does come through with some sincerity later on in the episode, which I do believe, and I'm going to expound on later on. But you know, in this early scene that we see him in right now, it's like, oh yeah, it's the, like you said, the charlatan, and man, he plays it to good effect too. Off in a dark corner, Ben, who has already let himself in the room, quietly watches the ruse play out. And while the moment is played is entirely grifter gold, there is one noteworthy thing that the man says. In speaking to the woman, he tells her that with her son's abilities, the Empire will come looking for him. So, we're calling this boy Force sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or that's part of the grift. I couldn't really figure that one out, but
I think it's from the perspective that they sought him out.
Right.
I think it's genuine.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah, in terms of that.
All right. So with the safe passage assured for them,
using a Jedi mind trick over a comm link.
No less. Did I not get that? I thought I did.
Well, he picks up the comm link, but we did skip that conversation.
You know what? I went right over it.
Entering your mind.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went right over it. Let me go back. I actually do have notes on this. Activating the comm link, the Jedi contacts one of Dayu's starport departure gates in a very hammed up performance, which is orchestrated not just by him, but by the man on the other end of the comm link. They convince the woman and her son that he's just used a Jedi mind trick to secure the pair safe passage to Corellia. Right. And then we get into Ben is in the corner.
Yep.
He's already let himself in, and he's been watching the whole time. All right. Now, with safe passage assured for them, the Jedi makes a not so subtle gesture with his hand, and the woman is like, oh, right. And she hands him a sum of credits. She tells him they'll never forget him, but the Jedi insists that for his safety, they must. Bidding them farewell, he ushers them out of the room.
Playing that thing, he has to stay hidden.
He's got to stay in character.
Yep.
Stay in character. All right. Pleased with himself, the man picks up his comlink one more time. Now, with no audience to impress, he plainly tells the starport worker that the woman and her son are on their way, and he's going to take a break. And I'll call you in a little while. So when Ben steps out from the shadowy corner declaring that he's looking for a Jedi, the charlatan Jedi is a little taken back. How did you get in here? He asks. But instead of answering the question, Ben goes right into how a girl has been kidnapped and he needs help in finding her. Composing himself, the grifter nods, then stands up and once again uses his force powers to close the shutters on the windows. Laying it on thick, the grifter introduces himself as Haja Estri Jedi. I help all who are in need. In return, I ask only a few credits. The shadows are my realm, for the light is an unforgiving place for my kind. Ben, allowing the grift to continue, tells Haja, of course, and asks how much. Haja tells him 500 credits to locate the girl and another 300 to take him to her. But, or sarcastically, Ben says, goodness, that light is unforgiving. Haja tries to tell him that it's a good deal, but if Ben would make it an even 1,000 credits, he'll even show him a few tricks. Asking Ben, what do you know of the Force, my friend? The actual Jedi in the room pulls a concealed blaster from under his robe and shoves it in Haja's chest, telling him just that it's a lot of remotes and magnets. So I'm going to stop here for a second because this is another one of those like Ben moments. I guess we can just call them Ben moments because he has a lot of them.
Yeah.
What happened to blasters being uncivilized?
These are uncivilized times. Perhaps. Yeah. These are uncivilized times.
They are uncivilized times.
And it's a foreshadowing to the opinions of Han Solo.
In what sense?
Exactly.
Well, it's all just legends and crap. It's not real.
Yeah.
And I'll take a blaster any day.
Oh, right. Hokey religions.
Yeah.
No match for a good blaster. Yeah. That's fair. All right. Haja, at this point, realizing the severity of the situation, wastes no time in putting up his hands. Ben immediately removes the electronic devices from inside his fingerless glove. Haja tries to fast talk his way out of the situation by saying that things aren't what they look like. But Ben shoots back with an obvious, it looks like you just took money from that family. Rolling his eyes, Haja says, I got them safe, just a little poorer. Adding that, you're not going to tell anyone, are you? Threateningly, Ben tells him, "That depends what you tell me." Haja asks Ben if he's a bounty hunter, and Ben sneers at him, calling him a bottom-feeding rat that preys on weakness. But he also says that, in his experience, it's rats that know more about the sewers than anyone else. Haja, trying to keep the tone light, meekly calls Ben judgmental as he watches Ben smash the remote lifted from inside his glove. With the blaster still pressed to his chest, Ben tells Haja that he's going to help him find the girl. Unsurprisingly, Haja agrees without any hesitation.
Yep, gonna do it.
Yep. Taking a step back, but still keeping the blaster in Haja's chest, Ben asks him again, "You'll help me?" And Haja reaffirms his willingness to live. To help. Lowering the blaster, Ben says, "Can I trust you?" And Haja replies, "Oh, definitely." We got a comment coming in here from Facebook tonight. It's Sean who says he's a new person. He uses whatever he can so that he hides his lightsaber or the Force.
Yeah. Very similar to King and Jerks.
Yeah, I agree with that in the sense that,
he's still not bringing attention to himself yet.
Yeah. Dark times indeed. And when you got to blend in, what do you do?
And speaking of new guy, like really, Kamel's character here is a new guy. Won't be long till he gets a figure.
Oh,
and as far as success, that'll be his second figure because he's already got one from the Eternals line.
That's true. On that note, talking about figures, or going back to Kumail Nanjiani for a second, we speculated the whole comedic actors tend to play the droids in Star Wars TV.
Yes.
Not true in this case, because we thought that the Ned droid might be his character.
Maybe.
True.
Or maybe he's pulling double duty.
Well, that's not impossible either, because Anthony Daniels did that. He's played a live action character in Star Wars at the same time as playing C-3PO. So
that's true.
It's not out of the question. Okay. Cutting back to the streets of the neon streets of Dayu, we see a small mangy mouse scurry past a barrel. As the camera pulls back, we can hear Haja's voice telling Ben that if it's the sewers he wants, there's only one place to go, but he'll never get in. The camera continues to pull back until we can see Ben walking past some neon signage. And I'm going to stop for a second to talk about the signage, because back in the trailer breakdown, we saw these milk signs before, but
on the rooftops.
What's funny is that they were just milk. There's a huge difference here, because this one, in what might be one of the funniest in-jokes, says SW milk in blue and green neon.
That's wicked.
This has got to be like the most highbrow Star Wars blue milk joke yet.
Or it's just going to be the latest product available at Galaxy's Edge.
You know what? Maybe. I haven't looked at the menu in a while.
Yeah.
Okay. At the end of a rain-slicked street, Ben approaches an outdoor lounge in front of a building called The Den. Another sign over a door reads Sabak. Pausing to look around, Ben takes note of the well-dressed clientele milling about the courtyard. A door below the Sabak sign opens, and Ben watches as an alien dressed in a green work smock with goggles resting on the top of his head and a respirator draped around his neck steps out talking to someone on a comlink. Now, this alien, I don't know, looks kind of like a Duros or maybe a Nemoidian with like a shriveled up head, kind of like a California grape on a human body.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, really. The worker walks down an alcove, and Ben kind of follows him. And I actually like this. There are a couple times that they do this, where they suggest something without actually having to show us that that's what happened.
Yeah,
that's right.
We just see the two wander down the alley, and then we cut to the next scene. Again, I know we brought it up last night.
Set reuse.
Well, set reuse, but I just want to say, confirm now that I'm through the whole episode, there are 0 wipes in this in the first 2 episodes.
All hard cuts.
No wipes, all hard cuts, which is I still find it kind of, it's not jarring.
No,
it's not. It keeps the show moving, but it is weird.
Well, reminds you that you're not in a movie.
It reminds me that it's not, the typical Star Warsian directorial style, if you can say that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you can say that anymore.
I got to admit, J.J. Abrams used wipe cuts where they didn't really even need to be.
Where they didn't need to be, yeah.
Just for the
I
sake
feel
of a
like
wipe
they're
cut.
with the wipes. They tend to be, in terms of pacing, it slows things down. Like we're just at a leisurely pace, whereas the cut is like it's frenetic. It's like there's an urgency with a cut.
Well, especially at the end of part 1 where they're cutting back and forth between the kidnappers and Tatooine. So harsh.
Yeah.
And the wipe is indicative of the fantasy genre anyway. It's that, that, that like wand moving across the screen. Kind of.
Oh, I thought it was the Scooby-Doo ending.
Yeah, right.
All right. Okay. So we then cut to a drug lab. And there's no other way to say that. It's a drug lab.
RoboCop vibes here.
Yeah, very much, isn't it? Several workers are dressed with the same protective gear as the worker from the alley. Ben enters the lab, and he is now dressed in the same PPE as the bulbous-headed alien. The goggles and respirator are covering his face. He makes his way past the workers, who pay him no attention, until Ben reaches a shelf with an open container of an unknown powdered chemical. Now, it is the same pink color as the spice that the spice dealer shoved into his pocket. So, are we saying that this is spice and maybe these guys are cutting it with God knows what?
It's quite possible.
Yeah, or they're alternate crack version of spice. They're definitely,
they're doing something to it.
It's a meth lab for just the Star Wars version of it.
Yeah.
Or the chemical is just the base one, and all the different versions she was trying to sell,
I guess so,
are just different cuts of whatever.
Yeah. That could be true.
And if this is a spice lab, are the Pikes connected?
In some way, they most certainly are.
Because, aren't they the preeminent spice dealers?
Well, they are as far. So she made a point though, because she actually named 3 very specific varieties.
Yeah.
She said like glitter stim, and I always assumed that was. You know what? Maybe I'm confusing my references here. Spice comes from the mines of Kessel.
Yeah.
Does it come from anywhere else? Do we know that for a fact?
Maybe. I don't know.
Felucia.
Apparently, yeah. Felucia, apparently.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a place where they're harvested. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm going to leave the jury out on that one. I mean, if you guys out there, if you guys got a better comprehension of how spice works in the Star Wars universe, let us know.
I recall glitter stim being from a novel, but I couldn't tell you which one.
I think so too. Yeah. I agree with you on that one, Hank. I'm sure it's from a novel. It might even be like one of the early ones, like Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Yeah. Okay. Looking over his shoulder, Ben spots an alien thug guarding a door, but he also notices a lab worker that's stirring a flask sitting on top of a burner. The camera now quickly cuts to a large glass flask over another burner, and that burner has now been turned up as high as it will go. Inside the flask, there's a blue liquid that begins to have some kind of volatile reaction, and as it bubbles up in a torrent until finally the flask explodes. Well, startled by the explosion, several of the workers can be heard yelling and screaming in the background, and the thug leaves his post at the door to investigate what's going on. Seizing the opportunity, Ben makes his way past the thug while simultaneously lifting the door key from the thug's belt and slips through the door relatively unnoticed. That guy's like a part thief.
He's got some moves still.
Good on him.
Juan. James Obi-Wan.
Wand Obi-Wan. With the goggles pushed up now on his head and the respirator removed, Ben begins to look around in a narrow hallway behind the lab. But just a few steps into the hallway, 2 men enter from an adjoining room and ask Ben what he's doing there. We get a human male, and we have what looks like a Zabrak. Zabrak obviously is the same species as Darth Maul. Been featured quite heavily since their introduction in other Star Wars media. Playing dumb, Ben tells the 2 men that he's lost. Now, the Zabrak, who is the larger of the 2 men, tells Ben to get back to work. But rather than play the role, Ben decides to get physical, and he elbows the smaller man in the face. While the larger Zabrak retaliates with a hard punch to the gut and follows it up with a second one to Ben's face. And with the hallway being so narrow, it's difficult for the men to maneuver, and Ben uses that to his advantage by backing away and putting some distance between him and the other 2. Ben deftly weaves between the two as the shorter man lunges past and misses with a punch. Then, taking the Zabrak in an armbar, Ben levers the man off balance. Using his other hand to push against his head, Ben throws the man to the ground, knocking him out, but is cut by one of the man's cranial horns in the process. I thought that was pretty cool. I don't think we've
really
ever
cool,
seen
too.
the horns have been weaponized before,
No.
even though it was unintentional. The smaller man quickly recovers, and he's right back in the fight, this time delivering a flurry of sweeping kicks that drive Ben back until he is able to close in finally with the man and subdues him with a chokehold. As the man stands there, unable to breathe, Ben says, "Where's the girl?" And it's almost like Christian Bale Batman-ish, like, where are they?
A little bit.
Like almost. Like there's a certain ferocity that comes across in this moment when Ben has to get physical that it's like, that is so not the elegant, General Kenobi who could wade through hundreds of battle droids or other enemies and still talk to them like, they were...
Hello there.
Yeah, exactly. This is not that guy.
No.
Yeah. It's almost as if he's channeling Liam Neeson from Taken.
Yes.
Yeah, really. This fight's really good. I liked it. It's gritty. And actually shows us one thing that, again, talking about, we've seen Ben get physical before, especially in the Clone Wars. There is a couple occasions where he has to go to like straight up fisticuffs. He's pretty skilled.
He's pretty skilled.
He is pretty skilled. And to see him like this is like, oh, okay.
Hasn't thrown any fists in quite a while.
Well, that too. Hasn't done a whole lot of anything in 10 years.
Yeah.
Cutting shark meat.
Yeah.
It reminded me too, the way when he throws the one punch and hurts his hand.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the way that when he kicked Grievous, he hurt his foot.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
One thing to point out, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
The two guards, they don't even blink that he's out in the hall. They just tell him get back to work. Is this another example of the slave labor that Bale was going on about in part 1?
Maybe the labor pool is so large that they just don't have a working knowledge of who's actually supposed to be working there.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Because going back to the RoboCop reference, all the guys they had working in the lab were basically plucked off the street. And
they were indentured.
Yeah.
Is that what we call them? Slaves?
Yeah.
Foot Clan members.
Yeah. Maybe that's how they're paid,
Could be.
You cut the drugs, you get the drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've trimmed a few trees like that in my day. Stay in school, kids.
That's right. So talking about that set reuse, Andy, here we are. This is the big one here. We go from a fight in the hallway, and then we're supposed to believe that he goes down another hallway and comes right back out into the same hallway. It's believable. I buy it, but I thought, it's neat. We cut to an empty hallway where Ben enters from a doorway and then seals the door behind him after passing through it. Again, nice reuse of that hallway set. Crossing the hallway to another door on the opposite side, Ben uses the guard's key card to open another door. Inside the room, he discovers a small body tied to a chair with a sack covering its head. Ben quietly calls out, "Leia," but there's no answer. Pulling back the sack, it's revealed to be some kind of derelict droid. Now, Hank, have we seen this model before?
I couldn't put, I haven't had the time to study it like I should either with the mayhem. But,
I honestly thought it might have been one of the droids in like Vader's like medical cadre, and I mean, I scoured, I could not find a reference, but I'm like, that head looks so familiar.
It reminds me of the black hole, old Bob from the black hole.
Oh yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
At least half the head though reminds me of a pit droid.
Oh yeah, with the eye, the central eye. Yeah. That could
Maybe
be.
there's like an extension body they can get for them.
I don't know. Before he can react, two of the mercenaries that had abducted Princess Leia enter the room with weapons drawn, and they force Ben up against a wall. Now they are followed almost immediately by their boss, Vect Nehru, who's still played by Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who casually strolls in declaring, "I didn't know the Jedi could bleed." Pleased with himself, Vect tells Ben that he's surprised he fell for it. Then, punctuating it with a punch to the abdomen, Nehru adds that he thought Ben would be smarter than trying to risk everything for a spoiled little brat. Ben doubles over in pain, and the Faline mercenary plucks the lightsaber from Ben's belt and hands it to her boss. As the mercenary leader admires the weapon, he says that the Inquisitor really figured him out, adding that she'll be here soon, and they'll be rich, while Ben will be dead. All right. I get this sense of like, and I didn't really capture it in this because, again, how many shots of someone's face can you get? We'd be here for hours and hours, and we'd have thousands of pictures instead of hundreds. But there's almost a moment here where I felt like there's a moment where Ben has that like, oh shit, I've been played.
Yeah.
Did you get that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. There's like a
Realized that he just walked into a trap.
Yeah.
Drops the shoulders a little.
Yeah. All right. Unfazed by the threat, though, Ben asks Neru where Leia is, insisting that she must be close. But Neru gets quite animated, practically shouting at Ben, "It doesn't matter, because you're not getting out of here," telling him, "You're not a Jedi anymore, Kenobi. You're just a man, and you're bleeding all over my floor." Well, with only one card to play, Ben looks at Vec Neru in the eye, drawing the vial of spice from his pocket, and says, "Everybody bleeds," as he smashes the vial on the floor. A huge cloud of pink dust erupts from the broken glass enveloping the room. Immediately, the mercenaries are overcome by the drug, and they let go of Ben, who slides the respirator back over his nose and mouth. Promptly kneeling Neru with a low blow, Ben snatches his lightsaber back as the mercenary falls to the floor in hallucinogenic pain, and then exits the room, sealing the door behind him.
Still not lighting up the lightsaber though.
No. There's a lot.
He could have
spends
took
a couple times
there.
looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at it. I'm not gonna use it.
He could have taken some hands.
The bleeding thing. We talked about the layers on this show, right? All the shows, really.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder if it's just us. Are we grasping at things? But it's like the whole bleeding thing. Is there a metaphor here? Is there an emotional metaphor that Ben has been metaphorically bleeding for the last decade?
Maybe. Or is it a Predator reference?
What's that?
Is it a Predator reference? If it bleeds, we can kill it.
If it bleeds, we can kill it. That's interesting too. Now they're all in the same stable now.
Yeah.
Alien, Predator, Star Wars.
It could happen.
Oh, that's a scary thought.
Ewoks versus Predator. Make it happen.
Oh man, I feel sorry for that Predator.
Yeah. Those cannibalistic little bastards.
Oh man, maybe that's what Leia's dress was made out of, Predator skin.
Yeah, really. Okay. Next we cut to again another hard cut, and we get to the streets. We see Reva striding purposefully down the street towards the lounge. When the bouncer steps in her way, she pulls the lightsaber from her belt and orders the man to move, which he does without any argument, and she passes unhindered.
Which is kind of contrasting to Tatooine, right? Like, Tatooine, they know who she is, they get out of the way. Here, it's like they don't give a crap until they figure it out.
Oh, I did put that in there. Okay, good. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I want to get this out of the way sort of early. If you look down on the bottom image, amongst the patrons that are sitting in the lounge is this blue guy that looks kind of like a Tyrannosaurus.
Dinosaur guy.
Yeah, dinosaur guys. We've had humanoid dinosaurs in Star Wars before, with the Tishar in Han Solo at Star's End back in 1979 in that novel.
Sid's very reptile-like.
Trandoshan. But yeah. I guess, do we think of Trandoshans as being dinosaur or just lizard? I mean, I know I'm splitting hairs here.
Dinosaur-like.
I'm splitting hairs. Mind you, if we say dinosaur, we could also be saying, is it a dinosaur or a bird?
True.
Okay, now I'm just being pedantic. I'm sorry.
Well, we're going to find out in a few short weeks with Jurassic World Dominion.
That is true. All right, so there are some other dinosaur guys in here in Star Wars, and if my hunch is correct, this may actually be the live-action appearance of a species called the Siru, or the Siruk, if you're referring to them in the plural. Now, these guys first appeared in the 1993 book, The Truce at Bakura. The Truce at Bakura, by the way, that is the fourth book published by Bantam Spectra at the resurgence of when Star Wars came back
Yeah.
It's the first novel after the Thrawn trilogy, so it was sort of still on that leading edge of getting the steamroller going. All right, but unlike the Tishar, which are more or less all brown in color, the Siruk, they come in many colors, one of which is blue. And we are going to see more of this guy later on, but I saw him sitting there, and I wanted to sort of talk about that now and just kind of get it out of the way. All right, back inside, Ben moves down an empty hallway to another doorway. Well, this time, he places his hand on the door before using the key card to open it. Do we think he just used the Force there?
Yes.
You do, eh?
I think so.
Where are you on that, Hank? Did he use the Force to sense for the, presence of life?
Yes. I mean, just to like, a low level sort of the same way he used the Force to boil that chemical.
Yeah, I guess so.
But like not even so much as to feel a life presence, but a Force sensitive. Like, Vader, I sense a presence. When Luke gets close or Obi-Wan gets close.
That's a very good point, Andy.
And maybe that's why he was like right from the get-go, yeah, this guy's just grifting.
The idea that the Skywalker children, as Ben says, that they would be a threat to him if it was anybody else, any other Force sensitive person in the galaxy. Do you think that it would be as like a bigger ping on the radar?
No, I think
because it's Leia
and Luke.
Yeah.
Pretty large.
Maybe.
As large as Anakin, if not more.
Yeah. Well, inside, the room is dark, and when Ben steps in, he's promptly attacked by little Leia, who whacks him with the backrest of the chair from the first episode. She hits him in the gut, and she tries to make a run for it, but Ben grabs her, telling her to wait. Leia cries out for him to let go, and Ben sets her down in front of him. She yells, "Who are you?" And Ben tries to explain that her father sent him to help her. But Leia is skeptical, and she asks, "Where's the army?"
Is it lost on you guys that in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th image there, he's posed exactly like Leia's posed before R2 when he's delivering the message?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So true.
Identical.
Yeah, that is true.
And another throwback here, when Luke goes to rescue her, he shows up as a stormtrooper. So every time somebody shows up to rescue her, she instantly thinks, bad guy.
Yeah, really, eh?
But she's more used to it in A New Hope because she's like, well, you're short.
Yeah, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper?
Yeah.
She's very critical.
Well, she's a lot of things, although she would say, "No, I'm not," and she does later on in the episode.
Yep.
Wicked.
Again, we brought this up last night, but this is that whole where's the army? It begs the question about the Alderanian military. Is there an Alderanian military? We did see I didn't go back and look at the first episode to see if those guys were armed.
It didn't look when he was running through the forest.
It
did not look like he had a sidearm ready.
He didn't have a sidearm.
No sidearms. Okay, well there you go.
Anyway. But okay. I still think it's like the parts of her are still a child. It's like when Brian the dog on Family Guy suddenly chases his tail. Where's the army? My dad's going to send an army.
Yeah. Any army. A rental army. Yeah. Right. I get it. Sure.
He's an Imperial Senator.
That's right. Yeah. So the army to her literally is the Imperial military.
Yeah.
Oh, see, now that makes way more sense.
True.
As the light goes on. All right. Well, Ben beckons Leia to take his hand, saying, "Come, I'm going to get you out of here." And when Leia asks him why she should trust him, he simply says, "Would you rather stay here?" And the two of them end up leaving the cell together. We cut to an exterior shot of the Sabak sign, and the camera pans back down to the same door that Ben used to get inside the building. The door slides just halfway open this time, which allows Ben and Leia to peek out without actually being exposed to whoever might be looking for them.
So he had the manual override.
I guess so. I mean, but he does have that boss's key, so
True.
Maybe that's kind of how that works. Well, Ben is still wearing the green lab smock and the respirator that he liberated. Yeah. Absconded with. And now Leia is wearing one of the orange smocks that we saw some of the other workers wearing. It's kind of funny, contrasting to see them beside each other. She's got hers tied around her waist because if she didn't, it would be dragging on the ground. With a gentle come on from Ben, the door slides open all the way and the two head out into the street. Walking purposefully, Ben quietly tells Leia to keep her head down, and they don't have much time. And little 10-year-old Leia sardonically says, this would have been easier with the army.
So good.
She's amazing. I can't
Crazy
say enough.
good.
I cannot say enough good things about her.
Perfect.
They better, I know that the Coogan law exists for a reason, but they better milk everything they can get out of this kid while she still can. She's so good.
Follow her on a Princess Leia show.
Well, this is what I mean. Like the Adventures of Leia,
Yeah.
like teenage Leia. Oh yeah. Cutting back to back inside the cell, Neru and his mercenaries lay blissfully incapacitated on the floor, enveloped in that same cloud of pink spice. It's settled somewhat now. Did you catch Flea's little like? It was like, how much of that is acting?
Yeah. That finger lift, like you're gonna say something profound before you pass.
Yeah.
That's classic.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Or he's doing the. I have a hand.
I was about to say something
The
about
finger. The cell door slides open, and Neru, he kind of tumbles out, head hitting the floor, and a very angry Riva looks down and says, "Where is he?" There's another Bale, or another Christian Bale moment.
Yeah. So that says the ventilation in those rooms isn't great.
Clearly not. Yeah, it's a whole
spice.
Well, and we don't really know. I assume that a lot of this stuff is happening fairly concurrently. Like, it's quick. Like, people are chasing people, and the chases are quick.
Yeah, like she was coming in the front door as Obi-Wan was going out the back door.
Yeah. Back inside, cutting back to Ben and Leia, the two have now paused on a side street to dispose of their disguises. As Ben removes his lab smock, Leia notices his lightsaber and remarks that he's a Jedi. Ben is quick to tell her to be quiet, and she pulls off her own smock. Looking back up at Ben, she says, "It's just that you seem kind of old and beat up."
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Ben leans down to face the little girl, and he tells her that there's a spaceport across the city, and they must make the last transport. And in another characteristic Leia-ism, I guess we can call them Leia. Can we call them Leia-isms?
I think so.
She has enough of them.
Yes, she does.
Leia enthusiastically declares, "Okay, then let's go," as she wheels around and marches off, only to be stopped dead in her tracks as she comes face to face with this huge ape-like alien creature. Stuck frozen like an alabaster statue, Leia stands in fear from her close encounter with the simian-like alien. Moving in front of her, Ben crouches down and looks at her intently. With a very matter-of-fact tone, he tells Leia that she has no idea what he's risking by being there, and that from now on, she will do exactly as she's told. Leia nods her head rapidly in agreement, and like an aggravated parent, Ben takes her by the hand and drags her down the promenade. Literally dragging her. Cutting back to the lounge, Riva shoves her way past the gate and steps onto the street, where she is now confronted by the Grand Inquisitor. He's accompanied by the fifth brother and the fourth sister, whom we saw back in the first trailer. We'll talk a little bit about the fourth sister here for a minute. The fourth sister was introduced, sort of, in the 2014 Star Wars Adventures comic book, Return to Vader's Castle #4. This one is by IDW. Now, it's technically not her. It's actually just her armor. Her armor was, can we say appropriated?
Borrowed.
Yeah, borrowed by the rebel agent Lena Graff, who, along with her crew, had crashed near Vader's castle on Mustafar. So yeah, that's her, the fourth sister. Here she is played by Rhea Kilstead, who's appeared on Superman and Lois as Ali Alliston.
Currently the big bad this season.
Yeah. Also, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where she played Lady Basha. The Charmed reboot as Dr. Julia Wagner, and Yellowstone, where she plays Sam. So yeah, that's your fourth sister.
Nice.
The Grand Inquisitor immediately calls Reva out for kidnapping an Imperial Senator's child. Once again, that kind of brings up that whole the
questioning of authority.
Questioning of authority, that there is a hierarchy within the Imperial military. And, it's not that she did it. It's that she did it and it reflects on him.
Well, she's still chasing Kenobi even after he said quit chasing Kenobi.
Well, there is that. But man, like the repercussions, the Inquisitors don't know this just tells us like there's so few people that actually know what's going on, like the Emperor's inner circle.
Yeah.
That these guys are, sounds like he's ignorant of that. And he really thinks that his butt is on the line because you just captured a senator's kid. What are you doing?
It shows you too the political state at this time too, because we're 10 years before Tarkin dissolves the Senate. We're actually there at the moment he dissolves the Senate. And,
yeah, we are.
Meaning that the systems are still individually controlled. There's still some sort of form of formal government that even the Empire has to adhere to.
Right.
Or else there'll be total chaos.
Yeah.
Which makes it all the more when the Duke is saying, the Empire's starting to line pockets.
Oh yeah,
they're getting ready for a move.
Exactly. Right, so it calls Reva out for kidnapping her, but Reva seems unconcerned, and she counters that they have done worse. I don't know what worse is. Be interested to see what that is, but I don't know.
Similar plans that the Grand Inquisitor has greenlit himself.
I guess so, yeah. The fifth brother is there, and he adds that she had no right. But Reva just ignores him, and she begins to explain herself. She tells the Grand Inquisitor that she found a link between Obi-Wan and Bail Organa in the archives, which I just assume means the Jedi archives.
Which they have access to now.
And that she used the girl as bait. The Grand Inquisitor continues his admonition, saying that you did this without informing me? And Reva replies that he gave her no choice. The fifth brother then cuts in, saying that Reva thinks she will gain favor by capturing Kenobi. At that, the Grand Inquisitor's tone shifts to something more sinister, and he tells Reva that whatever power she is craving will not change what she is. Naturally, Reva takes the bait and she says, "And what's that?" Lifting his head slightly, the Grand Inquisitor answers, "The least of us." And the look in Reva's eyes tells us that the sting of his words is very real. He continues, "You came to us from the gutter. Your ability gave you station, but all the power in the world can't mask the stench beneath." Regaining her composure, Reva steps closer to the Grand Inquisitor and retorts that maybe that stench is your failure. Suppressing a sneer and locking eyes with Reva, the Grand Inquisitor orders that the city be secured and that he will take Kenobi himself. Reva is clearly jarred by this, but he's not finished yet, and he adds that she is no longer required. You have been dismissed.
Go home, Reva.
Not wanting to back down, Reva reminds him that it was her that brought Kenobi to Daiyu. But the Grand Inquisitor won't have any of it, and he orders her to stand down, adding that she will be dealt with when he returns. The Grand Inquisitor then turns away from Reva, and he and the other Inquisitors leave. Okay, wow. There's a whole lot that just got unpacked in that sequence about the power dynamic in this organization. That I know we say that they're not Sith, but they're holy cow, are they ever? It's almost like what if the Sith wore their ambitions on their sleeves?
Mm-hmm. Think of racehorses just jockeying for position.
Yeah.
It's just like one-upsmanship, and Vader wants it that way.
I mean, the Grand Inquisitor has to maintain order within his organization, but clearly she wants to advance. I just couldn't imagine. I can't imagine being living like that. Oh.
See, at some point,
fifth brother. The fifth brother doesn't say whose favor she's trying to steal.
No.
So is it Vader or is it the Emperor?
I would say it's probably Vader.
Probably.
Yeah,
I think so.
I'm using a whole bunch of inference from the comics based on, on the comics, but I would say it's definitely Vader.
Well, I mean, that whole relationship that, being personally trained by.
Right. He dangles the carrot that maybe if one of them ever proved to be worthy, they could destroy the Emperor together. He dangles that carrot.
Oh, really?
Become my apprentice and we will rule.
That is a dangerous carrot.
But he's constantly telling them they're not worthy.
Yeah.
He routinely fights them all and just tunes them.
If you have this, basically it's like beating an animal and the animal just wants to appease the master, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Yeah, beat them, not me.
Right.
So it makes you wonder if Kylo Ren had something like this,
his own sort of cadre of Force users.
Not like the Knights of Ren or anything, but would he have taken his anger out on so many consoles and whatnot?
I don't know. Maybe
no sparring partners.
That's a whole different kind of conflict, though, right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there is actually a Kylo reference in tonight's in this episode. Yeah, we're going to get to that here. Not anytime soon, but we will get there
eventually.
Yes. Okay. Clearly not satisfied with her encounter with the Grand Inquisitor and not yet ready to give up on her quarry.
There's that ambition.
Reva uses her connection with the mercenary Vec Neru and his mercenaries to take out a bounty on Ben.
Which begs the question, did they get out of the spice trance having the door open?
Maybe it wears off quickly.
Maybe. It's a fleeting high.
Sitting in front of a terminal displaying the bounty information for Ben, we can hear Reva's voice over a comlink instructing Neru that anyone involved will report directly to her, adding that they don't have to catch him. They just have to squeeze him. That eventually he'll reveal himself, and when he does, she will be waiting. Neru then presses a button on the terminal, and a green progress bar appears as the bounty is officially sent out. And just for giggles, there is your bounty information. It says over the status bar, transmitting. The bounty information reads, wanted Obi-Wan Kenobi, offenses, high treason, and bounty upon capture. So
unspecified credit limit.
Oh, sorry. High treason. Yeah, unspecified credit limit, which is funny because later on, when the Grifter's apprentice goes back in, was like, look, we had him. Look at that bounty. He's using the same photo.
Yeah.
There's no credit value attached to it, at least not that we see.
Because there was a credit attached to the bounty for Nari in the first one.
Yep.
But
not so much in this one. We cut to the streets where we see a few different bounty hunters who are now receiving the information as their various holo projectors and fobs begin to go off. At the same time, Ben, still towing Leia by the hand, peers out from around a corner, and he sees a man studying his picture on a pad, and you can practically hear Ben think the words, "Come on!" in frustration. Ducking into a clothing vendor, Ben pulls a green cape off the rack as a disguise for Leia. She'd rather have the pretty sequin dress that she's admiring, but Ben instructs her to put the cape on instead. While he pays the vendor, Leia spots a pair of fingerless gloves. Ben tells her that you don't need those, but she's already put them on, and so relenting, Ben pays for both the gloves and the cape. And so completes the trifecta of classic Leia garbs as she gets her Return of the Jedi green poncho.
Fantastic.
I love that.
One more parallel there when everybody's getting the wanted poster lit up.
Yeah.
Very much a high school movie vibe in the moment where some vital piece of information gets texted out to everybody.
Oh, it's like it's going viral.
Yeah. And everybody's just oh.
No, I just got a tweet. We all just got tweeted.
Yep.
It reminded me of the scene in Mando too, season 1, when everybody's fob lit up in the bar.
All the fobs lit up at the same time.
Fobs.
Oh yeah, big time. Before heading back out onto the street, Ben takes a moment to coach Leia in the event that anyone stops them. He tells her that they are farmers from Toll, and she's his daughter. Leia mutters, "Granddaughter, maybe," under her breath. And when Ben says, "What?" she smiles and offers a chipper, "Nothing." And then the two head off.
Does that remind you of the what that he shoots Anakin when during the scene where it's overkill, Master? Catching the killer is implied in our mandate.
Yeah.
You will mind your station. Or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
The way he shoots the what? Like he can't believe the. Yeah, it's great.
Defiant Skywalker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at who her parents are.
Yeah.
Okay. Up and down the streets, more hunters received the bounty notice, including the boy, the grifter's apprentice. Leia, completely fascinated with everything, asks Ben, "Where are we?" He tells her Dayu, and Leia thinks that's incredible, adding, "Do you smell that?" as she runs over to a street food vendor. Ben says, "Don't smell anything, don't look at anything, don't touch anything," as he tries to keep her moving. And as they actually move away from the vendor, Leia tells Ben that he sounds like her parents. Little do they realize that in doing so, they just narrowly avoided a bounty hunting droid.
You think there's a parallel here between Leia and Omega? Because when she first gets on the planet, and she's like, "Oh my God, this, Mantel mix, got to try it."
Yeah. The food was a thing for her.
Yeah,
that's interesting. That's
where they kind of let her run a little bit and discover. Again, Leia's, and this goes back to part 1 where the cousin's like, "You don't get to leave. You don't get to go sample anything."
Well, that whole it's going to come up later on too about life going back to normal, and she's like so downtrodden. Is like, oh great.
Yeah.
She's just so she's been on Alderaan for the last 10 years. She's been nowhere. She's watched her dad come and go from the Senate.
Yep.
And people like her extended family, same thing, while she's stayed home for a decade. So sure, this has got to be like the grandest adventure for her.
Like, yeah, it's dangerous, but it's more fun.
I know I've been kidnapped, but damn, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody want to hazard a guess on the droid?
No, go for it.
All right. This droid bears a striking similarity to 4LOM, who we first saw back in The Empire Strikes Back. But there is one major difference, and that is that the droid does use some of the parts that we saw on Q90 in The Mandalorian, namely the chest plate. Could this be 4LOM earlier in its career? Or is there a thing in Star Wars where insectoid-inspired protocol droids just keep becoming bounty hunters?
Well, there are like the IG units.
Yeah.
Are all sort of assassin droids and things of that nature. So there's probably models. There's also, in the Dr. Aphra comics, there's literally a program that turns any droid into
the evil C-3PO there.
Oh, C-3PX.
Yes. 000.
Oh, I was thinking the older one from Legends, C-3PX.
Right, exactly. And that's what that's based on for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's literally, and it's a plot. She steals the droid to try to keep it from the Empire, but ends up giving it over.
There's almost like I see this droid as being sort of a hybrid of the two. Like it definitely has the because we know that 4LOM, the head, like 4LOM and Zuckuss, they were partners. They were hunting partners for a while. 4LOM's head is actually based on the Gand species. Mm-hmm. That's why they have a similar look. The droid in this episode bears a very striking similarity in that sense. So I don't know. Maybe there is something to it. I mean, this one's a dual pistol wielder. 4LOM we see is carrying like a long barreled Imperial blaster. I don't know. Anyway, it's a cool droid, and I'm glad that he's in the episode. As Leia and Ben continue their journey to the spaceport, she asks him, why isn't he using his lightsaber? Well, not waiting for an answer, she blurts out, maybe it's because you're not really a Jedi. As Ben looks down at her with a bit of a scowl, Leia continues undaunted, I heard they all died. She then says, I heard that Jedi can make things float. and then demands that he make her float. When Ben refuses, she blurts out, "Because you can't."
There's that perceptiveness again.
Yeah. Well, we talked, Andy, you and I talked about this last night.
Yeah.
We were talking about this. No matter how bright she is, no matter how beyond her years she is, she's still a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And you know how kids can, like, we're parents, they poke.
Yeah.
They just poke at something. Is she actively poking him?
Maybe. And maybe without knowing it, this is more guidance from beyond. Like, this kid
maybe.
is poking you to, come on, get your crap together and start connecting.
I am definitely...
The glee with which she spins when she says it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
I am reminded in this sequence that, above all, you have to keep in mind that she's a child.
Yeah.
She is a 10-year-old child, and some of that comes through in this scene.
Yeah, and that would be a pretty quick way to prove, yes, he is a Jedi.
Yeah. She just doesn't really grasp the severity, though, like the consequences of doing that.
No, whipping out your lightsaber here is like instant recognition.
Make me float, even if he wanted to. Like, no.
Yeah.
And she just doesn't grasp, like, why not? Well, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But it really is.
Yeah. Got a comment from Sean too.
Oh yeah. So Sean says, he says, when she says, "I want to float," I couldn't stop and think that Pennywise was going to pop out. She wanted to float so badly.
You'll float too.
Well, Ben, knowing that he has to say something to satiate her curiosity, tells her that if he uses the Force, it will draw attention to them. A point that is punctuated when a pair of stormtroopers who are walking past at that very moment. Safely past the stormtroopers, Leia says to Ben, "You haven't even told me your name." When he tells her it's Ben, she says, "Well, that's not a Jedi name." I can't tell if she's genuinely disappointed at that or if this is another, "I'm just going to poke at you for a while."
Maybe.
Right. Well, Ben plainly answers her, "Well, that's my name, and you're going to have to trust me eventually." But Leia, who has repeatedly demonstrated a wisdom and intelligence far beyond her years, says, "How can I trust you when you're hiding something?" Ben stops and turns to face her, and Leia continues, "You think the less you say, the less you give away, but really, it's the opposite." Completely taken back by her words, Ben retorts, "How old are you?" And when Leia cheerfully says, 10, he tells her, "You don't sound like you're 10. Then, wrapping his arm around her shoulder to usher her along, Leia looks up at Ben, still cheery, and says, "Thank you." Her performance throughout this, I mean, we keep going back to this, but I mean, I said it last night. I think Carrie Fisher would absolutely love her.
Oh, man. Yeah.
If you took Carrie's Leia, like A New Hope Leia, and you mashed it with Natalie's Padme and wrapped it up in a little like 10-year-old body, this is what you would have.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So I just want to put things into perspective too, because we're still talking about a child who's very much in the developmental phase of her life. I know, like that 2 to 5 is kind of the big milestones, but still under 10, there's a lot that can happen here. She's playing a 10-year-old, but in reality, she's not 10 yet. She doesn't turn 10 until the 4th of June, which means that when they filmed this, she was 8. Put that into perspective. Think about that for a second. 8 years old and giving that kind of performance.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Again, she's just,
big things coming for this kid.
No doubt. At the sight of 3 men openly carrying blasters while actively searching the crowd, Ben and Leia tuck in behind a vegetable stand and they wait for the men to pass. Cutting back to Hodges, the young boy, the grifter's apprentice, rushes in to show the charlatan Jedi the bounty posted on Ben, exclaiming, "We had him! Look at this reward!" Looking up from the card game that he's playing, Hodja bemoans, "Oh, that's embarrassing." The boy adds, "It says he's with the girl. He'll have half the city on him now." Drawing a blaster pistol from under the table, Hodja exclaims, "Well, let's go find him first." As he jumps up from the table, then he and the boy head back out into the streets. Back on the streets, Ben and Leia head down an alleyway off the main promenade. Suddenly, a man steps out from a doorway, eyeing the holographic image of Ben on his wrist projector. Recognizing the Jedi, he tries to pull a blaster, but Ben is just that much faster and knocks him out with an uppercut. Leia frantically asks, "Who was that?" And Ben tells her that he's a bounty hunter as he drags the man back into the doorway that he just emerged from. Cutting now to the Grand Inquisitor, he and the fifth brother make their way down one of the main streets. The Grand Inquisitor instructs the fifth brother to make sure that the spaceport is shut down and to have the garrison there within the hour. He also reminds him that Ben is no ordinary Jedi. He calls him the last ember of a dying age and tells the fifth brother to extinguish him. Walking away, the fifth brother mutters, "Consider it done."
No love for Yoda.
Yeah.
Only Kenobi is the last ember.
Yeah, really. Well, I mean, I guess that again, Yoda's exile. I mean, Ben is the only person who knew where he was.
Yeah.
And I mean, the dark side cave on Dagobah probably has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And also Obi-Wan sends the message, don't return to the temple.
That's right.
And so and even Kanan in Rebels keeps that recording for years, 15 years.
Actually, that's one of my favorite parts of that episode is seeing that message in its entirety.
Yeah, and so I think that he's the face of the Jedi in terms of what they've been taught and studied.
Yep. You know, and that can speak to, as you say, he's the face. That could speak a lot to what Reva wants. We talked about what she's owed. And I think Hank, you said yesterday about her, maybe some of her anger stems from like, why didn't you come back and save us? Yeah. All right, so just then the fourth sister drags an armed man in front of the Grand Inquisitor, telling him there's something you should see. She activates the man's wrist holo projector, and an image of Ben springs forth. Seething at the image, the Grand Inquisitor hisses, "Reva!" as he now knows that she's taken out that bounty on him.
She didn't go home like she was told.
No. All right. Cutting to the rooftops, we can see Reva perched high above the city, taking in everything from her vantage point. We saw both of these shots in the trailer.
Yep.
Again, here's the milk sign. Now, this one doesn't have the SW in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is the sign. Again, I thought it was funny before. I still think it's funny now that she's crouching in front of a sign that says ER. Like she's on top of a hospital. Yeah. Back at street level, Leia wanders down the alley while Ben checks a doorway to make sure that everything is clear. He tells her that they'll stay here for now, and Leia sits down and takes out Lola, still broken, having been smashed by the mercenary Vec Neru. Spotting the droid, but unaware that she's broken, Ben points at it and orders, "No noise from that." A dejected Leia retorts, "Her name is Lola. She won't make any because she's hurt." At that, Ben very coldly says, "Good." Which I thought, oh, Ben, what are you doing, man?
He catches himself, though.
He does. He pauses for a moment, and in seeing Leia's dejection, I think he realizes that he may have been just a little too harsh. So, kneeling down, his tone changes, and he asks, what happened to her anyway? Leia says that she was ripped to pieces by the kidnappers. And unconvincingly adds that she'll be all right, though. She's strong. Which is kind of weird considering that it's completely, like, smashed.
But that means at some point she got out on the ship and pocketed the thing.
That's true. Yeah.
And also, parallel here to that one episode in the Bad Batch where, Hunter was the voice of harshness.
Yeah.
And the other clone was like, no. Gentle hand here.
Yeah,
it's a kid.
yeah, exactly. Ben tells Leia.
Didn't frisk a 10-year-old child.
Oh. Ben tells Leia that he let her parents know that she's all right and tries to reassure her by telling her that she'll be back in the palace, back to normal by nightfall. Downtrodden, Leia nods her head repeatedly as she parrots the word normal. adding a sarcastic, great. Then it's Ben's turn to ask who's hiding something. Now she tells Ben that he doesn't have to call her that. It's ask the princess who's hiding something. She tells him that he doesn't have to call her that. It's just Leia. All right. And before the conversation can continue, an electronic chime goes off in the distance, and Ben tells Leia to stay here while he goes to investigate the sound. Kneeling down beside the unconscious body bounty hunter, Ben tries to deactivate the holo projector on the man's wrist, and we get this glorious shot of a de-aged Sir Alec Guinness, who is almost certainly modeled after the desert nomad statue and action figure that I so desperately wanted and I didn't think was going to happen. I am floored that they were able to get this in here.
Yeah,
and I'm over the moon. Like, I saw that and I'm like, yep, this might actually be, this is probably my favorite callback. I know there's so many callbacks in these shows, but this one might actually be my favorite callback in all the live action Star Wars shows to date.
It's pretty damn good.
All right. I'm just glad that they got Alec Guinness in this some way, some form, somehow. It's funny because have you guys actually looked up like old photos of Alec?
No.
You should, because he almost never wears, I mean, other than Star Wars, I don't see him in anything wearing a beard and a mustache. He's always clean shaven. He's always very thin on top. And this look of a de-aged Alec Guinness is very much a thick head of hair. And to reconcile that, how did I go from Ewan McGregor to being Alec Guinness? That perfect middle ground is that sideshow collectible desert nomad statue. And it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Curious about what the noise is, Leia approaches Ben kneeling beside the unconscious bounty hunter. She sees the holo projection and asks Ben, why is there a picture of him? Then it all comes crashing together for her as she realizes that she was kidnapped as a means to get to Ben. Ben is the reason she's on Daiyu. He tries to explain, but the damage is already done, and the little girl backs away from him angrily. Then the anger changes to fear as she questions if her father really sent him to begin with. Ben tries to reassure her that he did, but Leia is inconsolable. The situation quickly spirals downward as the more Ben tries to settle with her, the more worked up she becomes. She doesn't believe he's a Jedi and even goes so far as to question if Ben is the real kidnapper. Convinced that Ben really isn't who he says she is, Leia bolts. And she's off and running. This is one of those negative things that came out in the last couple of days. People talking about, oh, you couldn't catch a 10-year-old kid?
She's a fast 10-year-old kid.
I think anybody who says that has never chased a 10-year-old kid.
True.
Dashing out onto the promenade, Leia darts in and out between some vendor stalls. With her small stature, she deftly weaves her way underfoot, while at the same time avoids getting trampled. Meanwhile, Ben desperately gives chase, but he can't move as quickly through the densely populated streets as she can. Passing through some kind of menagerie, Leia runs right into a pair of bounty hunters. One of them grabs her, demanding she tells him where Ben is. But before she can answer, Ben has caught up and blasts the man in the back. Well, that's not very Jedi-like, is it?
Not civilized.
No, so uncivilized. The second bounty hunter tries to engage with Ben in hand-to-hand, but Ben drops him with a stiff arm to the chest. Now, with the immediate threat of the bounty hunters eliminated, Ben calls out for Leia to stop, but she runs past him, telling, "Leave me alone!" This next sequence is like a bunch of quick cuts back and forth. We cut back to the main promenade where we see the fifth brother advancing down the street with a squad of stormtroopers. As he's now carrying out the Grand Inquisitor's orders. At the same time, Leia makes her way into another alley where she finds a ladder on the side of a building and begins to climb. Back to the fourth sister, she conducts an interrogation of sorts from a lineup of citizens that she's collected. We saw that back in the first trailer.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to the alleyway again where Ben is now climbing up the same ladder, chasing down Leia. Reaching the top of the ladder, Leia runs from rooftop to rooftop. Fortunately, the row of buildings is close enough together that the gaps are small and she can make the jump. Ben is close behind and he calls out for her to stop. Dashing across a few buildings, Leia stops scared when she sees the dinosaur-like bounty hunter on a rooftop across the street. He's armed with a menacing-looking blaster rifle, and it's aimed right at her. Unable to continue her flight, Leia ducks through some hanging laundry, and she runs down the other length of the building on a new course. The bounty hunter, with a clear line of sight on Ben, unleashes a volley of fire, forcing him into cover. As the firefight erupts, Reva, still atop of her perch, sees the gunfire and starts parkouring her way towards the battle. Ben and the bounty hunter trade a few volleys of fire. Each time Ben fires and then moves, but the bounty hunter increases his volume of fire and once again forces Ben into cover. Unable to keep up the chase, he still frantically calls out to Leia, but the only thing that stops her is the gap between the buildings that is too big for her to jump across. She spends an awful lot of time going back and forth on this, like, do I, don't I, do I, don't I?
Will the Force help her jump?
I don't think that to her, it's this magical thing.
Yeah.
She's like, knows that, like, the Force is a thing, like a car is a thing.
Yeah.
Cars go fast.
She may be tapping into it, but she doesn't know that she's tapping.
Yeah, I guess so. Looking down at the gap, Leia assesses if she can actually make the jump. And she hesitates. And she goes back and forth in her mind several times, and you can see that. Meanwhile, the bounty hunter droid from the street has now joined the fight, and Ben is taking fire on two sides. As the blaster fire thickens, Ben's cover erupts in a cloud of smoke as a flock of convor owls circle out into the night sky. We saw that sequence back in the trailer as well. Still cool to see them. I get the feeling that they were maybe kept there, that it's some kind of aviary or something.
Yeah. Release them.
Now, he's in the middle of a gunfight. He's trying to split his attention between two assailants. He's still trying to pay attention to her, and he keeps like yelling at her, like, "No, don't." Looking over, knowing that Leia is contemplating the jump, Ben frantically yells at her, "Don't." Some distance away, Haja has now made it to the rooftops, and he starts making his way towards the battle. Leia looks over her shoulder at Ben, who's still pinned down under what little cover he has left. Ben tries to return fire at the bounty hunters, but it's all he can do to keep from being hit, and his return fire goes wide pretty much every time.
He would have made a good stormtrooper.
I think there's that whole, like, when you're in a firefight like that, there's that whole, like, you just point it in the general direction and hope that you're suppressing some heads.
Yeah.
100%.
But in this case, he doesn't have fire superiority, so he's the one getting suppressed.
Right. He also isn't proficient with the weapon, if you will.
Absolutely.
He needs to go out and bullseye some womp rats.
He's only proficient if he shoots him in the back. At close range. At very close range.
It's like a +5 anyway, right?
That's right, yeah. All right. Meanwhile, Reva closes the distance using the Force to knock over a tower, creating a bridge to span the gap between some buildings.
Straight out of a video game, man.
Yeah, I quite love this.
Killer video game.
She parkours the crap out of this thing, and I actually quite liked it. I was reminded of the Fennec Shan parkour sequence back in Boba Fett, but different.
Yeah, because it's Force assisted.
Yeah, there's less handholds here and a lot more just like kind of flying.
It feels like a kung fu movie, but there's a reason this character can do that.
Well, even though some of the wire foo, I got Matrix vibes. Like, she's doing backflips off the end of the thing, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
She's got abilities.
She does. All right. So, as Ben and the bounty hunters continue to trade fire, he finally lands a shot on the T-Rex alien and promptly follows it up with a second one. With that, the alien slumps forward and falls off the roof. But it's not over yet because the droid is still pressing the attack. Fearfully, Leia has finally made her decision, and she takes the jump. But the gap is just too far, and she falls. Ben, who's like abandons his cover at this point, no, rushes to the edge of the building. And when he looks down, he can see that Leia is hanging onto a wire between the buildings.
Kind of a Spider-Man 2 moment.
Yeah, like
when he loses his power and he goes to jump and just
Yeah.
Also, James Earl Jones, that's how you deliver that line.
Yes. For the first time, Leia calls out, Ben. Unable to reach her, Ben tells her, hold on tight. But her grip is failing, and the princess falls. Don't cry. Don't cry. Tell me, don't cry. This part hit me so hard, and I don't know why, because my first viewing on the first time through didn't faze me. But sitting down earlier today, putting my notes together for the show and like analyzing it the way that we do, this moment hit me in the way that Luke Skywalker's return on The Mandalorian got me and thousands of other people.
This is that self-actualization, though,
of
his moment where, what if I can't do it?
Yeah.
But it's Bale's in his head. You got to do it.
Yeah. Ben cries out, no! But it's too late as the princess falls in slow motion. As the princess falls in slow motion, Ben digs deep and with Herculean effort reconnects with his ally, the Force, catching Leia just a few inches above the ground and sets her down uninjured. This is one of those sequences where I was talking about the how many facial expressions do you need, and this is one of those ones where I would like legitimately, this is an all of them moment.
Yeah.
This sequence, I could watch it 10 times and probably see 10 different emotions go across Ewan's face here.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
We've spent so much time talking about Leia's performance, but let's talk about Ewan's performance here, because he spent a lot of time here on the media circuit in the last few days talking about sort of like what it was like to make the prequel trilogy and how disassociated with it he had become until he finally started warming up to the idea of the kids that they made those movies for are so in love with them that it inspired him to come back. And you can tell that he is putting everything into this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I'm biased. I do love the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but let's be realistic here.
If it wasn't performed well, you wouldn't connect with
No. And I mean, I connected with Obi-Wan in the prequel trilogy for different reasons, but now, my God, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm older. Maybe it's the way that I know that I watch my entertainment differently than I did when I was a kid. But man, it's just so good.
Very, very good.
Yeah. Down at street level, several people are dismayed from what they just witnessed. No one arguably more than Leia. Ben dashes in from the street and he asks if she's all right. And looking up at him, she meekly says, "You really are a Jedi." But there's no time for that as Ben picks her up, saying, "We need to move." It's funny, right back into, we got to keep moving.
Gotta go.
As Ben and Leia approach the spaceport from a nearby alley, we can hear a voice on a loudspeaker announcing that all incoming and outgoing traffic has been canceled, and all travelers will need to produce ID for scanning.
Shut down.
Yeah, we've seen that before. Line up and get your new IDs, everybody.
Yep.
Chain code.
Yeah, exactly. Where are we at here? Oh, yeah, we need to move. Okay. As the two duck into a doorway, the fifth brother and the fourth sister, along with the squad of stormtroopers, arrive at the spaceport to lock it down. Leia asks, who are they? And Ben tells her they're Inquisitors, adding that many of them were former Jedi, now turned to the dark side, who hunt their own kind. Leia questions, and this is all for you? Who are you? Just then, the bounty hunting droid gets the jump on them from behind, but before Ben can react, the droid erupts in a burst of sparks and falls against a wall. Standing behind it is Haja with his blaster pointed. Thinking that Haja is here to collect the bounty, Ben pleads with him to let the girl go, but Haja cuts him off and says that the entire city is on lockdown. He tells Ben that there's an automated cargo port nearby, that no one will look for them there. He shoves a remote in Ben's hand and tells him go to Transport 8. And when he asks Haja what he's talking about, he tells him that the ship goes to Mapuzo, and adding, they will be waiting.
Up until that, I thought for sure he was totally there to collect the bounty.
I kind of did too. I thought he was this greasy guy, like, oh, okay.
Like, no honor among thieves, get rid of the competition, I'll take him.
Yep. We'll see later on in the episode, but this appears to be the end of a droid scomp link.
All right, let's talk about where he calls him Haja and goes, "You remembered my name."
Yeah, he does. He absolutely does. Mapuzo, that's a new one for most of us, I think. When you look that one up, there's not a whole lot of information on that. Mapuzo is the central planet in the Mapuzo system, located somewhere out in the mid-rim. The planet is first mentioned in the West End Games supplement Alliance Intelligence Reports published back in 1995. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and we had some fun with this before, going down these rabbit holes. I know I talked to you guys earlier about this today, and now I'm putting it to our audience that the book is a compendium of threats against the Alliance to restore the Republic. Not necessarily Imperial, but just other threats. But it's written from the perspective of a bunch of rebel operatives who have put these like dossiers together. And these rebels are collectively known as Eclipse Team, or a special ops team within the intelligence agency of the rebellion. What's interesting, though, is if you keep following that rabbit hole, you find out that Eclipse Team actually becomes big enough that they're able to subdivide into 5 specialist teams, each with their own unique speciality. Now, if the they that Haja is referring to is a deep cut that's related to Mapuzo, which is related to this book, it could be a reference to this Eclipse Team. However, and this is a big one, there is an in-canon, we already have an in-canon special ops team.
We
do. And there just happens to be 5 of them with their each own unique speciality. So, what do we think? Do you think we're on a course to a collision course with the Bad Batch?
Wouldn't that be cool?
I am like ecstatic if that's what they're hinting at.
Yo.
I don't want to be the voice of like dissent. I agree. It would be super cool, and I would love every minute of it. Yep. I think it's too big to take. I think it would take something away from what's going on here. I think it's too big.
Ben even says, "Who will be waiting?" He asks. It's a pointed question, and Haja just kind of.
I say it's O'Shea Jackson because he's been casting him this evening.
Interesting. I put up a few things. I put up, by the way, that image of the Bad Batch, that is a new promo image for season 2. That is our new look for those characters going forward with their new paint jobs.
New action figures.
Hank, you'd made an off-the-cuff remark earlier today about, like Hondo's out there. And he's kind of, on the fence about which way,
He's walking around Galaxy's Edge too, so he's there 35 years from now too.
The other one I plucked out there also, there's 5 people here. Mind you, Ezra's not there. The Rebels crew. What about the Rebels crew? I mean, if you include Chopper, that's still 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the 5 thing is just me kind of grasping at straws, but again, I mean, that if we're going back, if we're pulling deep cuts, pulling deep cuts from the role-playing game that point to a Spec Ops team, I'm super excited, and I'm going on the record. I want it to be the Bad Batch. Doesn't mean that it will be.
Even one member of it.
Agreed. Yeah.
All I can say is remember our failure with Python. And so true. And I think it's a cohesion thing.
Yep.
There's so much that's been talked about, and now we can use it. And we're going to sit and talk about it for 10 minutes, even if it's just a name drop of a planet. And,
you are so true.
Right?
That is so true. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's probably what you're going to find. And there's definitely going to be a they on the other end. I don't think it'll be as auspicious as a Bad Batch. It could be it could be Echo. It could be our errant clone, but Echo Echo. That could be Echo.
Well, I mean, we did speculate about possibly being Echo in the trailer. Like, if that's the case, like we are so close, so close.
I think they might do Echo and not have him be such a big part of it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
the
cool.
whole Bad Batch. There would be so much story. There would be so many exposition. You'd have to introduce 5 people to him, and you would have to interact with them all. They'd all steal scene.
Any one of them though satisfies the holy crap, it's them.
Yes.
Like, I've been dispatched to do this, or any one of them. And besides, do we really want to go down the uncanny valley and see Timur Morrison digitally replicated 5 times in the same scene? Because he can only, mind you, they can do,
they can body double.
They can. Yeah, no, you're right. Again, I'm not a filmmaker. What the hell do I know? All right. Okay, so that's my my oh my god, I'm excited moment. when I was reading, as I was chasing that lead, I was like, oh my god. All right, I'm gonna leave it alone now. Moving on. All right. Ben asks who will be waiting, and Haja tells him that there are people out there who can help him. Skeptically, Ben questions how he's supposed to trust Haja. And Haja professes that he's made some bad choices that he sometimes regrets, but he's had to make a living somehow. He tells Ben that he's legitimately trying to make amends, that he did get that family safe, and now he's going to do the same for them. He says that had he had known what Ben is, Ben cuts him off saying, it doesn't matter what I am. It's all that matters is that the girl gets home. Haja shoves a sabacc card into Ben's hand with the instructions to go to the coordinates marked on the card. When Ben asks him again, how can I trust you? Haja smiles and says, what choice do you have?
The same choice he gave him.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah. There's the is the sabacc card just hey, I was playing cards. It's easy for me to jot down the directions on this card and hand it off.
Could be.
I mean, who are our sabacc loving people in Star Wars?
Lando
and
Han.
Right.
Yeah.
How old would Han Solo be?
I think there's, and here's something. This is what I think this sabacc card represents. I think it represents Lando, and I really think that it represents how Lando betrayed Han.
Interesting.
And I don't think this is as square a deal as possible. Whenever somebody says, you can trust me, don't trust them.
Yeah. Trust me, old buddy.
And in my experience, and I get Lando vibes off of Haja.
Very much. As you're saying it, I am, yes, very much.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw that out there as a speculation. I think there's a double cross coming.
Do we say that this is a soft, soft pilot for the Lando thing?
Maybe.
It could very well be.
The Lando show.
I mean, I didn't take the time to look up the sabacc deck. I don't even know if there's if there's a fully rendered official canon sabacc deck out there.
There is.
To look up what that particular card is. But I mean, I pulled up the Orabesh alphabet. I looked at it and I'm like, don't look at it too hard, because the more I stare at this, the more I'm going to try to shoehorn what I want it to be into that card. And I'm like, no, don't do that.
Like a tarot card.
Yeah. In saying that, in looking at it, I mean, you look at it from a particular angle. There's an H in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Han Solo H in there.
Maybe. I don't think it will be though.
I'm doing it again.
I think it's a nod to the fact that swindlers use cards, and that Obi-Wan is on his way to being swindled.
That very much could be. Yeah. All right. Haja tells him, you're not alone, Obi-Wan. And backing away, he says that he'll buy them as much time as he can. Then he flips up his hood and he puts another round into the fallen droid as he walks away. We cut to the Grand Inquisitor, who we see now. Its lightsaber is on full display as it is rotating and picking up speed. This is that sequence from the trailer where I was completely wrong. I was completely wrong. That's not a clone head there. That's Flea.
Yeah.
At the same time, it appears as though that the Grand Inquisitor is using the Force to drag Vect Neru closer to the blade, or as I'm calling it, the pinwheel of death. He says that he knows Reva put up a bounty on Kenobi and demands to know where he is. But there's a couple times, Neru's like, I don't know. But it doesn't matter because the scene cuts as we hear Neru screaming. I assume that's as he's being cut down. We cut back to Reva. This time she's dropped in from the rooftops and is now in the same alleyway near the starport. Rounding a corner, she comes face to face with Haja. This is the sequence from the trailer that we thought, is this Ben? Are they facing off? He's got a gun? Haja, with his blaster drawn, launching into his act, he tries to delay Reva by announcing himself as a Jedi, asking, how much is the bounty on me now? 1, 2 million? She tells him to get out of the way, and she tries to walk around him, but he actually sidesteps back in front of her. And she says, where is it here? She tells him to get out of the way, tries to go around. Haja sidesteps to prevent that, adding, it doesn't matter because whatever the bounty is, you won't get it. Reva steps closer, saying, you're no Jedi, but you know where one is. Haja maintains that he's the only Jedi around, but Reva has just about had enough of that at this point, and she uses the Force to hurl Haja up against the wall. She demands to know where he is. Haja refuses to answer, and Reva answers that she doesn't need him to, as she uses the Force to rip the information Kylo Ren style from his mind.
That's right.
There you go.
That's another example of a Force sensitive being like, yeah, you're no Jedi. There's no midichlorians on you.
I'm surprised though. She was so eager to hands go first.
Yes.
That woman on Tatooine, but she's completely willing to just, I'll just let you go. If he hadn't have gotten away, she would have walked around him and just kept on going.
Yeah.
Guess you'll think about that the next time. Arriving at the cargo port, Ben tells Leia that they must be careful because it's not meant for people. But Leia retorts cheerfully, then they won't look for us here. But Ben counters with, well, not unless it's a setup. Could you be any more cynical, Ben? She asks him if it's so hard to believe that he might actually have friends. Then, stopping to face Ben, she recounts that since they've met, she's been chased, shot at, nearly fallen to her death, and has now dodged Inquisitors, which she, by the way, refers to as inquisiting people. She finishes by saying that if someone is willing to help them, she thinks that they should take it.
There's that childlike innocence.
Yeah.
Optimism.
The optimism. She turns and boldly orders him, now come on. Which is kind of, that's like so Carrie Fisher adult, like when she takes command, like takes charge in the Death Star escape.
Yeah.
When Ben doesn't immediately follow, Leia turns back and she says, what now? And he tells her that she reminds him of someone, saying that she was fearless too, and stubborn, to which Leia retorts, I'm not stubborn. Ben chuckles, yes, you are. And Leia fires back, I'm not. Leia asks if Ben's friend was a Jedi too, and he solemnly says, no, she was a leader, and she died a long time ago. And as tenderly as she can, Leia says she's sorry, and Ben nods, adding, me too. We had a moment about this, talking about this sequence, and I don't know if I was influenced by sort of the social media thing that you would put out there, Hank. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. I put a post up. Basically, a lot of people know Obi-Wan, they know the character from the original, and then the kids know the prequel characters.
Yeah.
And not everybody knows the Clone Wars is in the detail we do, or his complete backstory. So I was thinking, what's the one thing the average viewer doesn't know? Even if they know a few things about Jedi. And I thought, Satine, they don't know that he was in love.
Yeah.
And that at a moment's notice, he would have walked away from the order had she said so.
Had she have given the word, he would.
So I put a little meme together and I put it out there, and I got 1,000 hits on it. I couldn't believe it, actually. It's actually still climbing. I don't know. People love Obi-Wan. People love that romance.
I love that. I mean, for those of the audience that don't know this, I mean, the Duchess of Mandalore, Satine, is a straight up reference to Satine from the Moulin Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's this whole double meaning, and it's really well done. You really get a sense of, like, Obi-Wan. He could have had the relationship in the open if he'd wanted to, but he made a choice.
And there's a major, and I think for people that are fans of the character but still have never seen Clone Wars, there's a major piece of character development for Obi-Wan there, and that's when power voice. That's when Maul outright kills her in front of him.
That's right. Yep.
And It reminds me of the moment when Kanan thinks Ezra is dead, and the Inquisitor is like, now you have nothing left to fight for. He's like, no, that's wrong. Now I have nothing left to fear.
Yeah.
And it's this moment of Obi-Wan is free in that moment of any questions he had about his loyalty to the Jedi Order versus his loyalty to his emotions and his love for Satine.
Yeah.
And in the weirdest way, her death is freedom for him.
I find the whole thing just completely fascinating. So, I mean, I was completely influenced by that, because I too love the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Satine. And my first impression on the first watch through was, he's talking about Satine.
Me too.
She was a leader. She was a leader.
But it makes more sense that he was talking about her real mom.
But then, you slow it down and you kind of go, no, wait. I mean, this is about Leia,
right?
And if Leia is going to remind him of anybody, it has to be her mother, her mom.
100%.
So, but again, that Star Wars onion that we like to peel back, does it not work on both levels?
For sure.
Sure does.
It absolutely does. Yeah. So I love it either way. I mean, yes, it's Padme, but if you want to shoehorn Satine in there, it works on a
doesn't bother us at all.
Nope, not at all. Okay, where are we here now? Oh my Lord, we got so off topic here. I'm like, I'm not stubborn. Yes, you are. No, I'm not.
They continue through the hangar.
Okay, as they continue through the hangar, a metallic rattling noise alerts them, and they duck behind a stack of cargo crates. Peering out, Ben sees Reva enter the hangar. She ignites her lightsaber as she advances. Now, she hasn't seen Ben yet, but she knows that he's there and begins taunting him by calling out, Obi-Wan,
I'm out to play.
Warriors. Fantastic. I loved that. I loved it.
Ben ushers Leia behind another stack of crates, producing the remote from his pocket. He hands it to her, saying that if he doesn't get back in time to go, promising that he'll be right behind her. Leia takes the remote and she runs towards the platform while Ben turns back. Taking out his lightsaber, Ben looks at the weapon in his hands, unsure of what he's about to do. Reva continues her taunt, saying, I can feel you. Your fear betrays you.
It's that fear of failure.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Leia, before we go on, you'd said that before, the whole, does spend a lot of time looking at it, and that whole, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
And I really, that comes through here as he's holding it in his hand. I don't know if I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He spends so much time cat and mousing around the boxes that it's like he's to the last possible second where it's like, I'm going to have to do something, and I still don't know if I can do it.
Here's another thing, man. A whole other onion layer, if you will.
Yep.
When's the last time he used that weapon?
When he took down Anakin
to murder his best friend.
Yeah, to murder his brother.
Yeah. So there's so much weight to that object in his hand. It's crazy.
Yep.
He spent the last 10 years convincing himself he can't.
Yeah. There's almost something to be said for, I know we got flashback to death in Boba Fett, but would you guys have wanted a flashback to sort of like to see how he got there? Does that matter to you guys?
No.
Okay.
No, I know how we got there. We know.
Yeah. We emotionally know.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Meanwhile, Leia has reached the cargo ship and she steps into the cabin. She spots the scomp jack and immediately plugs in the remote, and the automated ship begins to power up. Reva and Ben circle the rows of cargo crates, with Ben staying just outside of out of her sight. It's a game of cat and mouse, only in this game, Ben is the mouse. Reva tells him he doesn't have to worry. You're not going to die. Pausing before she says, today. Cutting back to Leia, she stands in the cabin door, looking back at the hangar, waiting for Ben. Back in the hangar with his back to a stack of crates, Ben tightens the grip on his lightsaber. Reva continues, I'm just going to take you to him, adding, Lord Vader will be pleased. And the weight of her words hits hard. She knows it as she says, you didn't know? He's alive, Obi-Wan. Anakin Skywalker is alive, and he's been looking for you for a long time. Using the Force, Reva starts pulling crates out from between them as she says, and I will be the one to deliver you to him. Ben's breath quickens. The moment is nigh at hand that he must act.
Do you think this is on par with the I am your father moment?
For me,
holy crap, he's alive?
Yep.
For me, this is the scene from Return of the Jedi where Vader is looking for Luke under the gantry, and he says, if you won't join me, maybe your sister
will. Yeah.
And for me, it's those beats that, like, I know something you don't know.
Yeah.
Break your mind now.
Well, just as Reva is about to tear down the remaining crates that are shielding Ben, the Grand Inquisitor arrives, exclaiming that he can no longer stand the reek of her ambition. Talk about, saving the day.
Mm-hmm.
Reva protests, saying, but I've found him. We have him, pointing to where Ben is. But the Grand Inquisitor orders her to move aside, saying that he cannot afford to have her lose him again. While the two Inquisitors squabble, Ben takes an opportunity to move out of the way behind another crate where he can see what's playing out between the two Inquisitors. Reva moves out of the Grand Inquisitor's way, and he says, watch and learn, as he gestures to move the last of the crates. But in an unexpected twist, Reva turns on the Grand Inquisitor, running him through with her lightsaber. Ben is visibly startled by this and makes a run for the ship. The Grand Inquisitor stares bewildered at Reva, her blade still buried in his abdomen. She leans in close, saying, did you really think I'd let you take all the credit? As the Grand Inquisitor slumps to the ground, Reva stares down at him and rhetorically says, who's in the gutter now? At the sight of Ben running toward the ship, Leia hits the command button, ordering the ship to lift off. Ben leaps aboard, and the ship lurches from its moorings. Reva, chasing them down the platform, yells at Ben, you can't run, Obi-Wan! You can't escape him! We'll find you! As the cargo hauler pulls away from the platform, Reva is still yelling, we will destroy you! And this is that like one moment where I mean, not to make fun of Moses Ingram, because I think she's wonderful, but it's like, this is the one bit of writing. It's like, that ship is like, he can't hear her. There's no way he can hear that.
What?
Yeah. Do we want to address the Grand Inquisitor thing? Do we want to talk about that for a second before we push it forward?
Spoiler?
Well, I mean, the Grand Inquisitor lives. We know that. Yeah. He's in Rebels.
Yeah. He shows up later on in other media.
Absolutely.
I mean, there was the brief, silly little discussion we had that maybe
It's another Powan.
It's another Powan, one that's better
with a longer head.
Prosthetics.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's
I don't
just
think so
that it's also it goes back to they've all experienced loss. They've all been maimed and injured.
Right.
And they're just going to drag his body back, and Vader's going to do some sort of twisted robotics to the guy. And
I mean, if she was smart, she'd go back and finish the job off now, and then tell everybody that Obi-Wan killed him.
Yeah.
Right.
But she's not going to do that.
No.
Yeah, I'm sure that the other Inquisitors will catch up with them.
Even if you cut him in half,
that's what I mean. Like, does the cauterizing from a red lightsaber look the same as the cauterizing from a blue lightsaber? Like, really? Yeah.
I mean, really, or the same as a blaster bolt.
Well, exactly. No, you're absolutely right.
He took one in the gut, stood up, and just kept going.
Yeah, you're absolutely. I've read some stuff. I don't know enough about Powans, and it doesn't really. I don't really care. But people are saying that Powans, have redundant physiologies, that they have two stomachs or something, and that they just poked him in the stomach. It's not going to be, it's not fatal. He'll be fine.
Not going to bleed out.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get another Thundercat appearance of the mod surgeon.
Maybe.
Right.
The Empire can afford better than that.
Yes.
All right. So as the cargo hauler pulls away from the platform, Reva is still yelling, "We will destroy you." Inside the cabin, Ben and Leia stare out the viewport, and we can hear Ben breathing, and it's really erratic. He turns around, leaning on the glass, and Leia can see that he is visibly shaken. She asks, "What is it? Are you okay?" Then, as the camera draws in on Ben's face, this is another one. I could have had about 40 Ben facial reactions here.
This is the one I cried like a baby for.
He whispers, "Anakin."
Then we
get, oh my God.
I lost it.
We get this immediate tonal change. I don't even know what the instruments are, but it's just like, as the music changes, and we get an immediate close up, and it's Anakin Skywalker. It's Darth Vader. We can hear the familiar rasp of his respirator, and the camera pulls back, and we see him suspended in what is most certainly his Bacta tank from Mustafar. And in case you forgot what that looked like, I threw that in just for reference. There is the Bacta tank on Mustafar. It's pretty good, pretty close.
Fantastic.
And then we cut to black.
For me, that thematically, I interpreted that sort of that scene to Vader's eyes snap open. Sort of the moment we cut from Obi-Wan's eyes to Vader's eyes.
To his eyes,
open.
Yeah.
And that reminded me of the snap cuts. The only time we get snap cuts actually in the Lucas trilogy is when we're snap cutting between Luke and Vader when they're feeling one another.
Oh yeah.
And Obi-Wan is just reconnected with the Force.
Yeah.
He's invoking Anakin's name now.
Oh yeah.
Vader just sensed it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's super cool. Minds there.
Yeah.
Oh, I got goosebumps. I was terrified. I was weeping. Man, boys, this is so good. It's crazy.
Okay. We know we're going to, where are we going here? What's the name of that planet? We're going to Mapuzo.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to meet somebody.
They,
whoever they are.
Mm-hmm.
The showdown with Vader, it's inevitable. It was talked about in the marketing on the lead up to the show. We know it's going to happen. What do we think is coming next? Any other details you want to speculate on?
I think we're going to run for an episode.
Run?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. We got to get Leia home.
Yes.
So we got to drop her off at Alderaan. Will there be some conference with Bail?
Maybe.
Interesting. Well, I mean, he's got to get her back to Alderaan via Mapuzo. So
hella cool. She was along for the ride, and
for the whole ride.
Obi-Wan might not even fight for himself.
That's an interesting thought.
Facing off against Vader isn't something that but out of necessity.
Yeah.
Just maybe. I don't want to dig too deep into I'm so open ended about this. I know that in some of the stuff that I read coming up to it, I know that supposedly they face off twice.
Oh yeah, okay.
And in some of the production stuff that they released last year, they seem to be on Mustafar or another lava world.
Yeah.
And in some of the press release footage, they seem to be on Tatooine facing off. So,
I kind of wonder if, you know, we're talking about the things, the catalysts that that cause the actions or the reactions or the things that spur him to action. The revelation that Anakin Skywalker is alive, is this a second chance for Ben? Does he think that, you know, maybe maybe there is, because the last thing that Padme says to him is there's still good in him, Obi-Wan. You know, and he doesn't address that. Maybe that's haunted him for the last 10 years, and maybe Ben will seek him out.
Maybe.
Whoa.
Just to see for himself if he's so far gone.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah.
There is that. There is the opposite of what we've been thinking, and that's excellent, where Ben becomes the hunter.
Yeah, like, I'm not running anymore. He's, you know, the whole I failed you. I won't fail you. I won't fail you again. I mean, ultimately, you know, he's not really failing him, but maybe he has that, as you said, that freedom. The death of Satine, you know, freed him in a way. Maybe the second encounter or the third encounter with Darth Vader is the freedom of Anakin Skywalker truly is lost.
Gone to him.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and the idea would be to redeem him, not to like necessarily kill him this time.
Yeah.
I haven't thought that he did kill him.
Well, guys, it was a extremely busy week to get to here, but we did it. We've just completed part 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi, now streaming on Disney Plus. You can see it, catch it every Friday. These I don't know if they're going to do the early drop like they did on Friday. Did you guys notice that it was an early drop?
Is it not Wednesday this week? It's gone back to Wednesdays, man.
Oh, okay.
I think they dropped it early because of it showing at
we got it at midnight Eastern time as opposed to that 3 a.m. So you would have got it at what, 1 in the morning, I guess.
And I didn't know that. I was dead asleep at 1 in the morning. But yeah,
that's on that point where you say I could push through that.
That's right. Yeah, I would have been wrecked the next day. I was wrecked anyway, but it was worth it, man.
All right. Well,
yeah, I think we switch back to June 1st as the next episode, fellas.
I'm gonna have to double check the dates on that, because if that's the case,
even better, we get it sooner.
That's like 2 days from now.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then maybe we can get another one in before we got to go, because I'm away this weekend. So
there was some reason they pushed it to Friday for this release.
I think the 2 episodes streamed at Celebration or something.
Oh, maybe.
So they figured, all right, we streamed it here.
Let's get it out before somebody handycams it to the world.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Ahsoka trailer. All right, guys. Well, listen. Yeah. There is lots more to come here at Fandom Power. There is lots more to come here on the high ground. We've got what, 6 episodes total? 6 total? 5 total?
I think 6.
6 total. Yeah. So we've got 4 more to go.
Mm-hmm.
We've got essentially 2 more feature films worth of material to cover for you, and we will cover that and a whole lot more right here on Fandom Power. So stay in touch, guys. Let us know what you like about the show. Let us know what we could be doing better, because we want to make a good show. And yeah, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Until next time, everybody. For Fandom Power, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
I'm Hank.
All right, guys. Bye for now.
The Force will be with you.
Always.